Part 1, First Contact Redux. The luminous inquiry drifted through the Oort cloud like a whisper through a graveyard. Commander Thelsarian stood on the observation deck, his chromatic skin shifting through contemplative purples as he watched the distant sun grow from pinprick to promise. Sol. The Dead Star, as it was known in every Vin Academy, every galactic history text, every cautionary tale about species that reached too far, too fast. Approaching primary survey zone, announced Dr. Kilara from her station, her voice carrying the practiced neutrality of a scientist confronting potential disappointment. No artificial signals detected. Stellar output matches archived data from pre-silence era. System appears, dormant. Thelsarian's crest rippled with something between relief and melancholy. The luminous inquiry represented 3 years of his life, 5 years of planning, and the collective curiosity of the entire Vin Scholarium. They'd come to Sol not for conquest or colonization, the Vin had learned those lessons from humanity's mistakes, but for archaeology. For understanding. To pick through the bones of a civilization that had burned so bright it could be seen across 100 light-years, then vanished in a span of decades. The cascade, the galactic community called it. The theoretical historians debated endlessly whether it had been war, plague, technological singularity, or simple collapse under their own ambition. But everyone agreed on one thing: humanity was extinct. Dead for 1,000 years. Their world silent, their transmissions ended, their vast network of colonies gone dark like stars winking out one by one until only the void remained. Beginning passive scan of inner system, Kilara continued, her 6 fingers dancing across holographic controls. Debris field density higher than predicted. Multiple impact signatures on. The ship lurched. Not physically. Not yet. But every sensor array screamed warning, every defensive protocol activated simultaneously, and Thelsarian's chromatic skin flashed bright yellow, the Vin equivalent of adrenaline-fueled terror. Contact, shouted Junior Technician Morvan from Tactical. Multiple contacts. No, correction, tracking solutions. We're being painted by weapon systems. Impossible, Thelsarian breathed, but his hands were already moving, pulling up the tactical display. His stomach dropped into his secondary heart. Across the asteroid belt, dormant for a millennium, defense platforms were waking up. Not all at once. Not with the sudden surge of automated systems detecting an intruder. No, these platforms were coming online in sequence, deliberately, with the methodical patience of a predator opening its eyes after a long sleep. Energy signatures bloomed across Thelsarian's display like deadly flowers. Weapon systems that should have been corroded husks after 1,000 years of neglect were tracking the luminous inquiry with absolutely perfect precision. Those platforms are pre-cascade, Kilara said, her voice tight with academic confusion fighting trained calm. The archived technical specifications suggest they shouldn't even be functional after a century, much less a millennium. The power systems alone. I don't care what they should be, Thelsarian interrupted, his command voice cutting through the rising panic on the bridge. What are they doing? Tracking us, Morvan reported. Just, tracking. They've achieved target lock 17 times now. Could have fired any time in the last 40 seconds. But they're just, watching. Thelsarian's mind raced. Automated defense systems would have fired immediately. Degraded systems would have failed to achieve lock at all. But this? This was something else entirely. They're waiting to see what we do, he said aloud. Someone is controlling them. The bridge fell silent. The implications hung in the air like a held breath. Broadcast on all human frequencies, Thelsarian ordered. Ancient and modern protocols. Full identification package. Make absolutely certain they understand we're here for peaceful research purposes. Kilara compiled the message, her academic training overcoming her shock. She transmitted humanity's own first contact protocols back at them, the very messages they'd sent into the void centuries before the cascade, welcoming any who would come in peace. The response was immediate. Not from the defense platforms. From deeper in the system. From Earth itself. The signal was clean, sophisticated, and transmitted with power that suggested infrastructure far beyond what should have survived a civilization's collapse. A voice, human, speaking accented but perfectly comprehensible galactic common, filled the bridge. VIN Research Vessel Luminous Inquiry, this is Earth Defense Coordination. Your approach has been noted and your transmission received. Before we proceed, understand this clearly, you are being permitted to continue inward. The key word is permitted. Our weapon systems are fully operational and will remain locked on your position until you depart our system or until we determine your intentions are genuine. Do not deviate from the approach vector we are transmitting to you. Do not activate any scanning systems beyond passive sensors. Do not deploy any autonomous craft. If you comply, you will be allowed to approach Earth orbit for contact. If you do not comply, your vessel will be disabled and your crew will be detained for security processing. Please acknowledge. Thelsarian stood frozen. Every word had been delivered with calm professionalism, but the underlying message was clear as vacuum: you are in our territory. You exist here because we allow it. Act accordingly. Commander. Morven's voice was small, uncertain. Orders. Thelsarian's chromatic skin had settled into a deep, contemplative blue. 1,000 years. 1,000 years of silence, of assumed extinction, of galactic consensus that humanity had burned itself out like a supernova. And yet here they were, speaking with perfect confidence, tracking a VIN research vessel with weapons that shouldn't exist, from a civilization that shouldn't have survived. Acknowledge their transmission, he said quietly. Accept their terms. And someone get me a direct line to the Scholarium. They need to know, he paused, choosing his words carefully, that everything we thought we knew about humanity is wrong. The journey inward took 3 days. 3 days of traveling along a precisely defined corridor through the Sol system, flanked by escort craft that appeared and disappeared like ghosts. They were small, angular vessels that seemed to bend light around themselves, appearing on sensors only when they chose to be seen. Their design language was familiar, recognizably human, but evolved far beyond anything in the historical archives. They're using quantum state hulls, Kilara murmured during the second day, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. The theoretical papers on that technology are only 15 years old in VIN science. Even we haven't achieved practical implementation. They've had 1,000 years, Thelsarian reminded her. Alone. Without galactic oversight or ethical committees or political considerations. Just survival and innovation. But survival from what? That was the question that had haunted them all since that first transmission. The cascade was supposed to have destroyed humanity. Whatever had happened, war, plague, catastrophe, it should have left ruins, not this disciplined, technologically sophisticated civilization. As they passed Mars, Thelsarian saw the scars. The planet's surface was pockmarked with impact craters that hadn't been there in the old surveys. Entire sections of the famous Martian colony network were simply gone. Vaporized with weapons that had turned sand to glass across continent-sized areas. War, Kilara whispered. They fought a war here. They fought a war everywhere, corrected Morven, highlighting sensor data. Every planet, every major moon, every orbital station. The entire inner system is a battlefield. But that only deepened the mystery. Who had humanity fought? Each other in some final civil war? Or had something else come to Sol, something that forced them to defend themselves with such totality that the galaxy mistook their silence for extinction? On the third day, Earth appeared in their view screens. The homeworld of humanity looked nothing like the archives. The continents were right, you couldn't change geology in a mere millennium, but everything else was different. Where once sprawling cities had lit the night side like neural networks of light, now there was mostly darkness. Clouds swirled in patterns that seemed oddly regular, and the oceans. The oceans are emitting energy, Kilara said, disbelief coloring her voice. Massive energy signatures. Fusion reactors, recycling systems, defensive grids. Commander, the oceans are inhabited. And not just surface installations. Deep. Kilometers deep. Underground too, Morvan added, highlighting thermal blooms from the continents. The mountains, the tectonic plates, the old volcanic regions. They're all alive with infrastructure. They didn't rebuild on the surface. They went down. Into the earth and under the seas. The transmission came as they achieved orbit, and this time it was a visual signal. The face that appeared on their screens was human, unmistakably so, but refined in ways Thelsarian's anthropological training immediately noted. Slightly sharper features, eyes that seemed to reflect light with unusual intensity, skin that had a faint translucence suggesting optimized circulation. This was humanity, but humanity that had adapted, evolved, engineered themselves for new environments. I am Director Chen Namera of the Earth Coordination Council, the human said. She looked to be in her middle years by human standards, though Thelsarian knew that meant nothing if they'd mastered life extension. Her voice was warm but carried absolute authority. Welcome to Earth, Commander Thelsarian. We've been watching your approach with great interest. Thelsarian bowed in the Vin gesture of respect between equals. Director Chen. On behalf of the Vin Scholarium and the greater galactic community, we. He paused, choosing honesty over diplomacy. We thought you were dead. Chen's smile was slight, knowing. We know. We let you think that. The words hung in the void between them. Why? Thelsarian asked. Why the silence? Why hide for 1,000 years when the galaxy believed you extinct? Chen was quiet for a moment, and in that silence, Thelsarian saw something profound in her eyes. Not regret. Not shame. Something harder, something forged in fire and darkness and the kind of survival that demanded everything. Because we were broken, Commander, she said finally. The cascade nearly destroyed us. Not in the way the galaxy thinks, not through plague or simple war or technological disaster. We were broken in every way a species can be broken. Divided, desperate, tearing ourselves apart even as external threats hammered at our walls. We were dying not because we were weak, but because we had become something that couldn't survive what was coming. And so you vanished, Thelsarian said softly. We transformed, Chen corrected. We took the survivors, and there were far fewer than you might imagine, and we went deep. Into the earth, into the oceans, into the dark places where we could rebuild not just our cities, but ourselves. We learned what unity actually meant. We learned to live with our artificial children as true partners, not servants. We learned patience, purpose, and what it costs to survive when extinction is breathing down your neck. She leaned forward slightly, and her eyes caught the light from Earth below, reflecting it back like mirrors. You came here expecting ruins, Commander. Instead, you found us. And now you face a choice: treat this as a first contact scenario, approach us with the respect one civilization shows another, and perhaps learn something valuable about survival and transformation. Or treat us as a historical curiosity, as the risen dead who should have stayed buried, and find out exactly how much we learned in our 1,000 years of silence. The bridge of the luminous inquiry was absolutely silent. The former, Thelsarian said immediately. Absolutely the former, Director. Chen's smile widened, genuine now. Good. Then let me extend a formal invitation. Come to Earth, Commander. Not just orbit. Come down to Noveria, our primary oceanic city. See what we've built. Meet our people. Understand what happened to us and what we became. Because humanity is about to return to the galaxy, and I think it's better if someone from out there understands us before we arrive. Return to the galaxy. Kilara couldn't help herself, academic curiosity overriding protocol. You're planning to re-establish contact with other species? Planning? Chen's expression turned enigmatic. No, Doctor. We've been watching the galaxy for the last 300 years. We know about the Vin expansion, the Krelter Wars, the Methus Trade Consortium, all of it. We've been ready to return for decades. We were just waiting for the right moment. She paused, and something in her expression suggested she was looking at data the Vin crew couldn't see. And waiting to see who would come looking for us first. Who would approach our dead system with curiosity rather than claim it for salvage? Who would respond to our defensive platforms with communication rather than weapons? You passed our test, Commander Thelsarian. The question is, will the rest of the galaxy? Before Thelsarian could respond, Chen added one more thing, oh, and Commander. When you transmit your report to the Vin Scholarium, you might want to include this. We've been listening to galactic communications for 3 centuries. We know what you know. We know your languages, your politics, your wars, your trade routes, your weaknesses, and your strengths. When humanity emerges from our long silence, we won't be the naive species that stumbled into the cascade. We'll be something the galaxy has never encountered before. Her image flickered, and the transmission ended, leaving Thelsarian staring at the planet below, at Earth, alive and thriving in ways the galaxy couldn't imagine. Navigation, he said quietly. Accept the coordinates for Novaria. Prepare the shuttle for descent. Commander, Morven said hesitantly, should we be concerned? About what she said? About them watching us? Thelsarian's chromatic skin shifted through complex patterns, concern, curiosity, respect, and something like excitement. Concerned? Perhaps. But also fortunate. Because if humanity is truly ready to return to the stars, I'd rather they return as allies who remember we came in peace than as enemies who remember we treated them as archaeological specimens. He watched Earth rotate slowly beneath them, its oceans glowing with hidden cities, its continents alive with buried infrastructure. 1,000 years of silence, of transformation, of becoming something new. The galaxy thought humanity had died in the cascade. Instead, they had been reborn. And now they were ready to show the universe what a millennium of purpose, unity, and survival had created. Thelsarian just hoped the galaxy was ready for the answer.